Just follow the laws no matter what, otherwise, it is Ukraine or Russia who have the law, but the law in the country, no. Returning to the topic of migrants, although these people came from regions where Russia has waged wars at the expense of the European Union itself, they were not allowed. And it is good that the European Union has now at least partially acknowledged its responsibility for sponsoring Putin. But the European Union clearly did not repent on its knees and did not apologize. So, let's write this down to deep-seated selfishness. As you know, all is well in moderation. But in the European Union this dish was served a lot and abundantly. As a result, many Europeans simply forgot to sacrifice. And to sacrifice something in the name of something good. Peace, goodness, humanity, family, children, and many other things. America, however, is strikingly different. And as a responsibility, she does a lot for Ukraine, and she began to do it first. To the detriment, by the way, of its economy and its social programs. America, unlike Europe, will try everywhere to help defend democracy. It's not that Americans are so good, though they are. And from the fact that this is the essence of the very survival of America as a country. Time and energy, resources simply do not remain for yourself. And this is a sacrifice paid by the American people to bring order to the world. The American people are sacrificing their security. And the money they spend on military budgets could be redirected to the social sphere. But no, dictators are raging in the world, they must be stopped. Wars break out regularly. Or some other country wants to fall into authoritarianism, and in America, there is no choice. The sooner more countries become democracies, the sooner the world will free up huge resources for space exploration, technology, medicine and various social programs, as well as basic income and so on. The meaning of fascism, nationalism, and other viral destructive ideologies is as follows: to drain resources from social spheres and direct them to war. The United States is trying to stop the squandering of the world's financial resources. Social programs in the United States suffer accordingly. Every country is imperfect in its own way, because nothing is perfect in this world, no, and it can't be. But we must strive for perfection, especially when it comes to building a country where everyone will be fine. The reasons for the uprising of Black Lives Matter should not be reminded. To deprive the people of its criminal element of consciousness, which some Americans have. For example, street gangs, etc. irresponsible citizens. This is the task, not only of the police, but also of teachers, educators, parents, economists, and politicians. This is the reason for the massacres in the United States, so you know and understand this topic. Now you understand why there is a problem with weapons in the United States. Because to solve this problem finally, once and for all, there are simply no resources, neither financial nor moral. Morally, America is shaken by a series of wars in the world. And everywhere she is guilty, must be held accountable. No one can stand such a regime, and neither can the economy. America is still doing well, ahead of many countries in per capita income. Not all, but many. Richer people only in Luxembourg, Switzerland, Southern Ireland and some other countries. Only a small handful of countries. But in these countries there is no, and never will be alone a mask, Michael Jackson, Boston Dynamics. So the United States is relatively good. But there is a problem with weapons. Yes, maybe when the United States defeats all the villains on earth, it will become the best country for life and income. But so far, one of the best, but not alone. Because military budgets do not allow it. Unfortunately, how many US did javelins send to Ukraine there? And before that to Syria? And financial aid, how many weapons did Germany send? Well, that's how Germany saved on democracy, isn't it? Why is the example of the United States given here? Because it is very similar to what is happening in Ukraine. An unfavorable environment with a criminal situation throughout the existence of independent Ukraine. Ukraine is deeply a criminal country, it is elementary, dangerous. The events after 2014 filled the country with illegal weapons. In addition, no one was involved in the development of the moral qualities of the people, there were no special programs. They did not deal with the economic well-being of the people either. As a result, they received a high level of domestic violence. See statistics. A gun law could worsen the problem, and the security situation would follow the US scenario, with its massacres. But for this there are institutions and specialists in the country, after all, for this there is power in the country to deal with this issue and implement this law in the country so as to minimize the negative of its adoption. But, as you can see from the example of the United States, this is a great responsibility. And the authorities were just lazy to do it. And the people were lazy to think about their safety. He transferred security to the army, and then the flywheel of this problem spun. As a result, it resulted in massacre and genocide in the cities of Ukraine, and in the end, everyone just says, well, how did it happen? What kind of animals are they, these Russians? Yes, that's right, but they were animals until 2022, if anything. It was easy to understand, as well as to calculate how much will be twice, too. On the risks of passing a law on weapons, risks did not mean that people like Tetiana Zadorozhniak should not be given a chance to survive and defend their honor and dignity. This is the fault of all the people in her death. As in the death of those who died in a similar way. Now try to explain to the relatives of these victims why, as the authorities in your country under the constitution, you did not pass this law to prevent what happened. Politicians are silent about it. But they will be silent. But they are not the government in Ukraine. Power is you. Why have you not studied the experience of countries that have managed to find a balance between weapons and responsible possession? Because it's a huge job. For the same reason you didn't understand that the army can't protect you. Trying to shift responsibility from oneself to another or others. Yes, all this had to be done. But it's much easier to blame the government, which you personally don't need to say at all. Any government exists to make mistakes and create more problems for the people. Any responsible nation does not allow to harm the people too much or not to harm at all. And in those countries where people manage to do it, everything is fine there. The example of Switzerland will help you. As for weapons and how to find this balance. Meanwhile, to avoid mass killings and security problems in the country. And such examples, after all, are Switzerland and Canada. But maintaining this balance requires great responsibility from the people. And it seems that the Swiss and Canadians have it. In America it is more difficult, there is a different mentality. A lot of crime, due to proximity to Latin countries and other factors. And it seems that after the events in Ukraine, the amendment on weapons in the United States will be discussed with even greater enthusiasm. And although the Democratic Party is trying to tighten the rules of gun ownership, after the events in Ukraine it is not clear what will happen next. It is not known whether it is good or bad when the people have such ample opportunities to arm themselves for their own defense. Undoubtedly, such laws or amendments to the Constitution of Ukraine would undoubtedly protect Tetiana Zadorozhniak from the brutal murder and violence she endured. And that's exactly what the founding fathers of America thought, because they thought about their families. Officials have personal protection, they have already thought about their security. And they want us to sneeze at us. The founding fathers, when they adopted the amendment on weapons in their constitution, thought that one day they themselves would become a common people and state or personal protection would not always be with them. As it is, in the United States, officials can become ordinary people after they are fired. There are no former officials in Ukraine, as a class. Politicians leave with a pocket full of money, which is guaranteed to provide them with personal protection when they wish. That's why to think about some security there when they will become a common people, the fact is that they will never become a common people and will not go to live in a dormitory and will not go to a God-forgotten village where in addition to gardens and old dilapidated houses, nothing. So, as a result, the founding fathers of America, probably having experienced or seen a lot of violence in his life. These are the people who understood perfectly well what the lack of the right to defend oneself can lead to when such a Kadyrov monster appears to you. And he will try to drag you into the room, rape you, and then kill you, already defiled and tortured. And how will the victim feel in such moments? And if she survives, what waits her in the future if she survives? Victim? What torments await her ahead? And now imagine how to end your life like that? To humiliate you, insult you, trample your pride, make fun of you, and then brutally kill you, a sweaty, stinking killer? Can't imagine, and you try? Try to mention Tatiana Zadorozhniak and other similar victims? And at the same time, imagine how the average American would behave if he was told that one day they would break into his house, rape him, keep him locked up for a few days, periodically rape him, mock him. He would be at least surprised, and it was replaced by fury. Take a look at the videos on YouTube of how Americans behave properly and fanatically with weapons. How can such people be approached with guns with impunity? God will urge you to do so, even if you do not have evil, bad intentions. It is best not to do this. Because the armed man, the American, will not even come close to the doorstep of his house. First he will shoot, and then he will understand, why did you come, and even with a weapon. And now open the Constitution of Ukraine and look at the first lines. The government in Ukraine is the people. It was the people of Ukraine who did not hand over weapons to Tatiana Zadarozhniak to shoot the rapist and the murderer who rushed to her monastery and let her die in this battle if he were not alone and took reinforcements from the same killers. But she would not have been raped, she would not have been killed in cold blood. And she would leave this life with her head held high, proud of being able to defend herself and take every chance. Unfortunately, she passed away with different thoughts. This is the price of how the people allowed their pride to be driven years and centuries below the plinth. The USSR did not pass in vain. The destruction of pride in the people was not in vain. And the people obediently and properly did not look into the constitution and were simply lazy to improve their country and rebuild it anew, to pieces. And he believed in officials, messiahs, God, cults, armies, and God knows who else.